News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
Well, top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And as we prepare to take Newsline to two different days as well, Thursday and Friday, it will be in the evening at 8 p.m. from 8 to 8:30 p.m. Do remember and put that in your diary. It's a new timing. But in the meantime, to discuss something that's on the minds of most people, the sliding exchange rate. We're getting the rupee is about 100 and just knocking at 165 to the dollar. And to explain the practical realities of that move, of that scenario, is Mr. Ramal Singer. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. And you are the president of the
National Chamber of Exporters.
National Chamber of Exporters. Now, isn't it a good thing for all our exporters when they're getting more rupees for the dollars?
Well, that's a common thinking, and it's a myth.
It's a myth.
It's a myth.
Ah, there you go. Myths, myths uncovered on Newsline. What does this mean then?
Well, we have the challenges of inputs,
Right.
and most of the inputs, particularly in the value, in value addition,
Yeah.
is imported. So
Right.
that comes at a cost.
Right.
Then on the other hand, we have the services, and even if a service is delivered, there's an input, which is a direct import, because today we have more imports than exports.
Right.
And they're all sensitive to the depreciating rupee.
Right.
So therefore, it's not easy. So at the final bill, you might collect more rupees.
Yeah.
But however, to get there, so the benefits or the issues outweigh the benefits.
Right. They outweigh. But what about the government? This government's sort of well, the UNP component of this government, anyway.
Okay.
Their stated aim is to let the rate find its own level. That they don't want to intervene and let market forces drive that, and that apparently is their policy. Is that a good policy?
We put it in perspective. Like the dollar is very strong against all the global currencies, and we are half. Okay, the Indian rupee is 12%, has a 12% depreciation against a rupee that is still hovering around 6 and 7%.
Right.
So the depreciation, the rupee is not that bad, but just that the impact on India probably less, because they got a very big manufacturing and big behemoth, I would say, of scale, which we don't have. And we are working against the factors of scale, high energy costs. That's two main factors. And I think the energy cost here, where we are paying dollars for fuel, and that has a direct impact. So therefore, we would have to have, I would guess, some sort of temporary measure, because I feel that the policies of the central bank, forget politics, are sound because they are working on the fundamentals.
Right.
And you can see that there has been some improvements on the fundamentals working. And it's just this dollar issue.
What do you mean, the fundamentals? I'm finding it difficult to find anything that's good.
So. Oh, it's like this. Now, earlier the inflation and interest rates are controlled through the exchange rate intervention.
Right.
But now the central bank has decided to go on a concept of flexible inflation targeting, which is a fairly scientific method of controlling inflation.
Yeah.
And having said that, our inflation is between 5 and 3%, which is not too bad for the economy. So people are still living, and we are managing. So the real factor is the fuel bill. I would guess that has this impact, and that would have a snowballing effect on our export activities.
So, so you say that, but so at what point have we reached the point where practicality has to overcome political ideology?
I won't say political ideology. I think it's again economic necessity. Right now, it's about time, I guess. And actually, I was last Friday on the panel at the Economic Summit. And this is the same thing I said about it's about time that the central bank intervened. And also they said that they would intervene if the dollar went out of control or the rupee went out of control. And I think now is the time to apply the brakes, because today in the black market, or rather last night in the black market, you would buy your dollars at almost 170 rupees. So the benchmark is virtually set in the black market.
But isn't it a strange set of affairs? 170 to the dollar is around what, that was the amount that the pound sterling was some time ago.
Correct. So, of course, we have to appreciate whatever Donald Trump has done. He strengthened the economy of America.
Yeah.
And if you take, there was a comparison of the depreciation of global currencies. Now, a place like Venezuela has 2,500% depreciation against the dollar, which makes their money virtually
well, you need about
worthless.
so much of money to get a cup of coffee.
Exactly. And same probably with Turkey.
Yeah.
And that has an impact on our tea exports.
Yes, Turkey buys a lot of tea from us, doesn't it?
Exactly. So that has the depreciation in turn has snowballed into their buying power becoming constrained.
Yeah.
So it has a snowballing effect.
Yeah.
So it all depends, I guess, on probably global politics with the midterm elections in the US, and that probably could have an impact on the dollar as well.
Ramal, to be brutally frank about these things, and let's not mince our words, and you know, let's leave political niceties to the side. Would it help if we had professionals running our Ministry of Finance, the central bank, and so on? Professionals where it matters.
Most certainly. I can speak for the central bank because I've served on a few committees on the central bank in the past. And I think central bank has the mix of academics and professionals.
Right.
But again, it's the independence of the central bank. And I'm
glad you're bringing out the independence of the central bank, because we've seen that independence being impinged upon. And my point being that this country in Sri Lanka, we're lucky because we have a written down constitution, and we have lots of rules and processes and procedures. It's all there, but it's an acute lack of implementation that when you depart from process and procedure, like you talk about the independence of the central bank, when you impinge on that independence, then you're left with things like this bond scam and whatever it is.
But let me reiterate, I have not seen a direct intervention on the central bank, I mean, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Okay, I think they've learned a bit of lesson from the bond scam, and I think they've kept off.
Yeah.
If not by now, I suppose there would have been a political interference to control the dollar. At the end of the day, that affects the electorate. So
let me put this to you in another way. We've got, heading our finance, we've got basically a fashion designer who is now turned politician, fashion designer, turned politician, turned Minister of Finance. This is all very good. It's neither here nor there. But if we had officials who were professional and who knew what they were doing and who were absolutely committed to country first, then we'd not have so much of issues.
Faraz, let me take you back to the change of the constitution way back in 1972, where the power base shifted from the executive, from the governor, I mean from the officials to the executive.
Yeah.
And then the executive, and this argument I've had, where democracy prevails. So, I mean, at least you have a fashion designer, but it could have been something worse.
Yeah, it could have been worse. Right. It could have been a rogue governor or a rogue commander. I don't know. It could have been.
So that's where the system, I mean, it's you and I who take them to parliament, right? And again, there is a question, and I think there are attempts now to let the professionals do their job, at least an attempt. I'm not saying it's successful, but at least there is recognition. And events have proved that you need professionals to run, and people who are in the know to run such institutions.
Yeah.
And I think we've learned since then, but it will take time. It's again an evolution. It's got to evolve. But okay, what have you got? What is our choice?
Yes, what is the choice? The choice is that we should select a whole new bunch.
Oh, okay, you look at the political arena. What is the same people being recycled, right?
It is the same people being recycled. We need a fundamental paradigm shift away from how these people are nominated in the first place.
Yeah, so you got the electoral reform, so many things have changed. But again, remember, as I said a couple of hours ago on your Face the Nation program, in Sri Lanka, electorate has an ABCD solution for everything. Alla batala kosdella. So as long as they are given that, who's bothered? And if they can manage with whatever meager means they have and be happy with it.
Well, I don't think they're happy. They're just
surviving.
They're surviving because they can't. What else can they do?
Yeah, so this is more than a politics, a sociological situation where you got to get to the grassroots and improve their lot. But again, you take our situation. Now we have in the manufacturing sector and in our export and for exporters, we have a severe dearth of people to work. People are not willing to work. And I have statistics here from the central bank released last week that we have almost 80,000 males from the age of 25 to 40 leaving the country. And for what? And these are all from professionals down to
they're probably in search of trying to earn a little bit more money to bridge the gap between the cost of living and the actual amounts that they earn, the real value of the rupee.
Yeah, but it's not like we're underpaying. Now, we had a system where, okay, I think even recently when the government opened up jobs for unemployed graduates.
Yeah.
But of what happened, the graduates who were employed in the private sector left jobs at the rate of 50,000 rupees to go and work for 15,000 rupees. So what is rationale on that? How do you explain that? So all they say is we get a pension and we don't need to work so hard. So we as a nation don't want to work.
Is that what the problem is?
Well, the private sector after training and giving them a career path is losing graduates. So how do you solve that problem? So I think we are getting too populist.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't say crack the whip, but we got to have a change in thinking and get more inclusion. Probably inclusion is the word into the economic.
But isn't it difficult whilst you are repairing the leak here, on the other side, somebody is busily drilling a new little hole?
So that is where you need consistency in policy. You need similar thinking, congruency in meeting meeting their viewpoints.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it comes to your selfish, power hungry.
I want to say Sri Lanka is one of Sri Lanka's larger listed companies. Had in January 2015, its share price is 248. The exchange rate was under 132. Let's set it at 132 for the purposes of argument. Last week, that same company had its share price at 139. The dollar rate today is nearly 165. You do the math and you'll see that that company, even though it's paid dividends and it's made profit and so on, it hasn't been able to overcome the decline of the exchange rate. And in dollar terms, what was once worth $1.88 is today worth less than 85 cents. That's a lot of money. And on the other side, you see what Trump has done, and you'll see the US interest rates gone up slightly. Well, as they go up, the gap between what Sri Lanka would pay them and what they could make here in our capital market and on the interest rates offered here, the gap is tightening. And then when you add to that scenario what you just mentioned, the stability of policies, then I think there's no reason why they need to risk it in an emerging market like in Sri Lanka. So that may explain why there's a net outflow of foreign investment.
Of course, there is an initiative, steps have been taken. Now we in the private sector were clamoring for policy consistency.
Yeah.
So we've seen the introduction of the national trade policy, the national export strategy, which we were stakeholders of. And arising out of that, you have Enterprise Sri Lanka and dovetailing on Vision 2025.
Have we got enough money to put into this Enterprise Sri Lanka?
Well, that is where we probably need to generate. And I
yes,
don't know,
but have they got enough money to put in there in the first place? Or is it just another fancy idea? They've got great ideas, Rama. If you forgive my frustration, they've got great ideas, and you listen to them, you think, crumbs, where's the vote paper? Let me vote them in whilst they're talking. But their implementation
that's
is
exactly the
rubbish.
point. That's exactly the point. The mechanisms to implement had to be put in place. Now, okay, you have a beautiful policy or you have a strategy, but then how do you execute it? I think our issue is the execution, and proper steps have to be taken to execute, and that you got to engage the private sector. Because the state sector would not have the wherewithal to and the experience probably.
Do you fear that the government might mistake you as an economist? As opposed to the serial entrepreneur that you are?
Well, all of us would have to be economists because that's a reality, and we got to live, and we got to survive, and also we got to exercise, give our point of view. If not, we'll all be in disaster.
In this current market, again, in this current ambience, this economic ambience, do you think you'll be able to replicate, do it all over again, what you've done, setting up whatever businesses you've done?
This is interesting. I think a couple of weeks ago, the business oligarchs got together, and one of them, I don't want to mention names, said, I mean, these are times in which you create entrepreneurs, or you use the situation to your advantage, and you build up a business. At the end of the day, the Kennedys made their money on the depression. When things were not there, and that's where the talent or your abilities come to fore. So I think this is the time. Maybe the conditions are not ideal, but if you are smart enough, and I think our universities are churning out a lot of entrepreneurial material.
Is that the place? Is that the place to look for the entrepreneurs?
Not really. Not really. Not really.
What about venture capitalists? Do you think they'll have a field day at the moment?
Yeah, the point is nobody confident. That's the issue.
No, that's the problem. Why? Why is there no confidence?
Because we go back to the argument. Because for the longest time we did not have consistency policy.
Ah, there you are. So it's back to this thing that I keep saying, that when you have due process, you must stick with it.
Exactly.
The minute you deviate from due process, you're in trouble.
Well, look at the situation where we were trying to control driving licenses for three-wheel drivers, giving an age limit.
What happened to that?
But then somebody else said not to do it. Now, why is that? Because obviously they are looking at the voter base, and that's a fairly significant voter base.
Right. Well, our guest this morning is Mr. Ramal Singh, serial entrepreneur, but he's also the president of the National Chamber of Exporters. And we are trying to get to grips with what real effect there is on the sliding exchange rate. Some people, the common myth is, of course, that it's great news for the exporters because they export something and they get a whole lot more rupees. Well, actually, an industrialist who set up a tea business told me that in the early days when they started and they exported, by the time they got paid for this thing, when it was time to convert their dollars into rupees, the exchange rate had moved dramatically, and they got a whole lot more rupees.
They'd be laughing all the way to the bank.
They did. They were laughing all the way to the bank, and they told me that because they were completely strapped, having pawned the mother-in-law's jewelry and God knows what else, that they had no more capital left, and they needed capital, and this was a big godsend. So they got a pile of rupees extra, which they never dreamt about, and it helped them no end. And today they're doing lots of other things. So that's the myth then.
Well, it's like this. It depends on what you do. Now, one of the things that I keep on saying that the scientific community needs to rise, because doing the standard commodity-based export will get you only so far. And don't forget there's an input of fertilizer which is important. And that has a cost. And
notwithstanding people who have dreams, and then the politicians ban things like glyphosate.
Yeah, but it was brought back with a lot of, with the lobby and with the practicality of
well, yes, happening. But what I'm saying is this is all. Can you imagine the damage it did to this industry that brings in? And it was all to do with a dream.
Yeah, we learned the hard way, right? So unfortunate. Unfortunate.
A dream, my foot. Honestly, that's true, folks. I'm not joking. It was all after a dream.
But just to get back to what I was trying to say,
Yeah.
because way back in the 70s when you and I probably grew up, things were tough. And then even things like sugar was restricted, and we were having hakuru in various permutations and various ways to just to get the, to make your tea taste better.
Yeah.
But having said that, it was a closed economy, it was a different era, different world.
Yeah.
But had that effort, the industrial effort gone on in innovation,
but
we would have been better off. At least we would have got more advantages from the depreciating rupee because the inputs would have been substitutes.
But Ramal, you say that, but in that era, in that different time, companies like the Maharaja Group were built.
Exactly.
And that's absolutely remarkable. True. Because within that closed economy.
So aren't we facing the same situation in a way?
In a way, now we're doing the same thing, because now even though we can't now.
Yeah, but you've got to reinvent yourself, right? I mean, take a career, take anything. It's during the tough times that you really come up with the best. As they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Indeed, but believe it or not, in spite of all the politics that we have on Newsline, today has also been one of those days where we're getting a number of SMSs. Do send your questions in 0772 300 305 300 305. And one of them says, and I love it, it says, perhaps, because you're the president of the Chamber of Exporters, could you not devise a scheme with a discount in which we can export our politicians?
If there's a market for them, yeah. If there's a market for them.
Well, I mean,
I'll have to create the market.
You'll have to create the market too. That's the other thing. Somebody else says here, can you please look into the issues faced by fruits and vegetable exporters, as the shipments have to come 6 hours before the flight, and there are no cool room facilities. There's always more than 5% rejects as a result. There is no war now. Can't these procedures be relaxed? Obviously from a fruit and vegetable exporter who's watching this program.
These are issues that have been addressed virtually every month on at council meetings, and we make representations.
Why can't we have, they spend billions on some blessed kitchen at Sri Lankan Airlines, and one of our young reporters reported on that. Why can't they spend money sensibly? Surely a cold storage facility it's a no-brainer.
Correct. The excuse that we get, okay, write to us, we'll do it. Now,
really?
How many of them?
After years and years of being in the business.
So I wonder whether everybody has actually made representations.
But honestly, are you telling me that there is no cold room facility?
There probably is, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough. I stand corrected, because we've not, so far our members have not complained to that extent on the cold stores. But one of the things that we are fighting for is the single window and the speed of getting our goods across with cutting the red tape.
Yes.
Now that is something we are quite vociferous about, and we are, as a chamber, we are trying to support that effort.
So what's inflation really like? Because, this question from a viewer, when you get 13% interest on a bank deposit at zero risk, why
13 is very good. Then
why would you invest in a business?
True. But again...
so then inflation must be more than that.
Yeah, but now today, or a couple of hours ago, right, the former official central bank also said that, and I think official statistics also say that it's hovering under 5%, 5 to 4% really right now.
Right.
And and I think the free flow of the dollar has controlled interest rates to some extent, and I think 13% is very good going, because right now the rate is around, maximum would be about 12.5.
In response to your statement about these young professionals leaving, they're leaving because their self-respect is threatened, and they're leaving because no policy will work with this lot of thieves. Great ideas to deny us, the public, of our rights. This is the sentiment of the public.
I would Yeah, I would tend to agree with them, because in management, or what we have learned in the mercantile sector, is people don't leave companies, they leave people or they leave bosses.
Yeah.
And that to some extent is probably correct. And if you and I were given a choice to work or name a few companies we would work for, we would not be spoiled for choice, but we would have to think really hard. So that is there.
Yeah.
But again, these are all, I guess, responses to an environment that is difficult right now. But again, a lot of the oligarchs have come up after working, some of them, in other companies.
Ramal, do you remember some time ago, I don't know if it's so prevalent now, but exporters used to get incentives.
Exactly.
Can we not give we need to give our exporters more incentives to export, to kickstart. Now the government's trying to kickstart the stock capital market by investing, doing something very risky, investing the captive funds like the EPF funds into the stock market. That's risky, but what about giving people incentives to export?
Through the EDB, there are grants that are coming through.
Yeah, but are they enough?
So the point is, a grant is not a giveaway, right?
No.
So you got to put something in there.
Yeah.
So it depends on whether our entrepreneurs or startups, particularly for startups and micro exporters, there's initiatives that are coming. And I wonder whether the EDB or the MODSIT have actually made awareness of that, because if better awareness and publicity given to the grants and how to do it, then probably would see people availing themselves of that, because the grants have been
several questions. Most of them are the same. Why do you think the government is not intervening to stop the sliding of the rupee? How does this affect the economy? What should the government do? What do you mean by intervention? How can you get more dollars in the market?
Yeah, so it would all depend on the reserves. Now what I heard yesterday or last night was that we are short of reserves.
Yes.
So then you got to make some other control. I mean, you got to stem your import bill.
So you need other things other than Volkswagen deals. You need real.
But you need real FDIs.
You need real
FDIs, yes.
Not FDIs that come here and look for money in this market.
But on the other hand, why would somebody want to invest here?
Well, there you go. There you go.
So that is where probably we have the wherewithal as to the attractiveness, but we've not, actually what has happened right throughout is a lack of communication and articulated communication.
But there are so many people. For example, if you, I met a chap who had done a proposal at the BOI. He said that after several weeks, when he inquired, they said it had been passed on to something or someone called the Agency for Development, and he was a bit puzzled as to why yet another agency and he had been promised that this BOI was supposed to be a one-stop shop, and so there's one foreigner who's rather frustrated.
Yes, but what has he done? Has he escalated that problem? Because I'm sure if it's escalated, and as we are talking about it right now, and the due publicity given to this issue, that they would be forced to take action on that.
We have so many questions. I'm so sorry I can't take them all. I want to set up an export industry, manufacturing. I have a choice between Sri Lanka and another country. What are the incentives for me to set up in Sri Lanka? Well, that's a big question. And we're going to have to put it to Shamir Rasuddin, on the moderator on Face the Nation. Perhaps they'll take this up on that program. But Ramal Jasinger, thank you ever so much for your time.
My pleasure.
And that's the way it was on Newsline. And don't forget, on Thursday and Fridays, Newsline is at 8 p.m., 8 to 8:30 p.m., Thursday and Friday. All other days, we're at the same, 7 to 7:30 in the morning. Have a great day ahead. Take care and God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.